Who's ready to make some beans? This is the Bean of the Week video, and these are a white bean that we're making today. I wish you could smell them. They smell so delicious. I cooked them earlier, and if you could just see how, they've kind of developed their own bean broth, and it's thick, and it's very good. And I purposely didn't add a lot of water to these beans because I wanted the bean broth to be really rich. Put this over here where you can see it. So that's something when you're cooking your beans, just be sure, I see somebody's already come on to watch, just be sure when you're cooking your beans that there's a fine line between letting the water evaporate so that you don't have any water, and then, not having enough water or having too much water. So if you have too much water, and I've seen people do that, then what happens is, you just have a very watered down bean broth and there's no flavor to it. It doesn't develop a good flavor. So it's okay to let it kind of simmer to the point where it gets kind of thick. You like that. And then you can always thin your bean broth once you've got it cooking. So what's the best way to thin it? I don't know if you can see back here, but what I have is I have my little electric pitcher. And it works really well. You just turn it on and it heats up in no time, and then you can pull it off the little whatever pad it's on, and then you add that to your beans to add a little extra water. Well, this water is boiling hot, and the reason we want to add, let me get my tea while I'm over there. The reason we want to add boiling hot water is because if we add cold water to our beans, then our beans will stop cooking, because if you add cold water to something that's hot, then it kind of retards the cooking. So we don't want to do that. We want to add hot water to it. Okay, so let's get started with our bean of the week, which is the white bean. It's called Alubia Blanca, A-L-U-B-I-A Blanca. I don't have any that aren't cooked, but it's just a kind of a small white bean. I think it kind of looks like the size of a navy bean, kind of. It's not like a big cassoulet bean. It's not the great big oversized lima bean. It's just a little, kind of a small white bean. Oh, and they're very good. They have a really creamy taste with a thin skin. So I think we're gonna really like this. I'm gonna take some of these beans out of the pot because I made a whole pound. My Rancho Gordo bags are a pound. It's a pound bag of beans. And I actually made the whole pound. A lot of times I make 8 ounces because, I don't want to use the whole bag because, usually it's just me. My husband sometimes will eat the beans, sometimes he doesn't. So I'm going to take out, I'll use a measuring cup. I'm going to take out 3 cups of the beans and use them for something else. Now, what something else might I use the 3 cups of beans for? Well, I could just freeze them in little half-cup bags, which I do a lot. Like I would take these beans and measure out half a cup, put them in a Ziploc bag or a container, and put them in the freezer. And then because I eat beans, the daily dozen is 3 servings of beans a day. So then I have all these different varieties of beans in the freezer in half-cup bags. And so anytime I need my half cup of beans, like last night I put half a cup of beans on my salad, I just looked in the freezer and I had all these little packages of red beans from who knows when, and I took one out, put it in the microwave for a minute, then I kind of rinsed them off because I was putting them on salad, and then my salad had these delicious little red beans. Well, I could do the same with the white beans. However, most of the time what I do is I just heat them up with a nice broth, maybe add a little vegetable stock, and then I have like a little instant bean soup. So if you don't want to make a whole huge pot of this soup, I took out 3 cups because 1 pound of beans, dry beans, makes about 6 or 7 cups of cooked beans. I'm also going to take out the bay leaf. Bay leaves are not good to bite into because they're really sharp and hard. And if you swallow one, it could get stuck in your throat. So always take your bay leaves out. So I'm going to set this to the side because we have to make the other ingredients for our white bean and green soup. Let's see, I see some people on here, just a couple. Camille, Inna, I guess that's how you pronounce it, and Donna, Hi, glad you guys are watching. So what I'm going to be doing in the white bean and green soup, we're going to saute up some onions. So I have my beans that I cooked today in the pot, and I'm going to leave them in the pot because I'm just going to add some things to that pot. So, but before I do that, I'm going to cut up some onion and put that in the skillet, even though there's already some onion in the beans, because my basic bean recipe, remember, is onion, carrots, and celery sauteed and then added to the beans. So there is some amount already of the onions, carrots, and celery in the beans, but I'm going to put a little bit of freshly sauteed onion in here just because I think that's going to make it taste better. I see some more people are watching. Hi, Terry Malnar. Terry, do you have the Alubia Blanca beans? I know you get a lot of beans from Rancho Gordo, so just wondering if you've made these beans before. If you have, mention in the comments what you thought of them. I don't think I've ever had them, and I tasted some earlier, and I'll put them here so you guys can see what they look like. I tasted some earlier, and they tasted really good. Really creamy, and all I put in there was the carrot, celery, and onion. And I did put some salt in there. Okay, I think this is enough onion. These onions I get are so big. This is about the equivalent of half of a medium-sized onion, or maybe even the size of a small onion. A piece fell off. So I'm just chopping my onion like I always do. Cut it in half. Cut a few horizontal slices, and then all I have to do is, you know, kind of rotate it, and then I can cut perfect little 1/4-inch dice pieces. And that always works for me. Let's see if I remember to bring my tool in. No, I guess I didn't. Thought I did. I'm just going to use my hands and get all this onion in the skillet over here. Woo. Some of it went on the floor, so we'll just let my husband worry about that when he's sweeping. He's so nice. He sweeps the floor for me. And when I say sweeps the floor in our house, sweeping the floor is a lot of work because I'm always cooking, so there's always a bunch of junk on the floor, like onions and garlic skins and who knows what else. There's a little notification on here. It says that during the broadcast you can support my page by sending stars. People have been doing that. And it's pretty cool. If you click on stars and buy stars, they're a penny a piece. And what happens is Facebook sends me the money. Well, they're supposed to. I haven't gotten it yet. But it's like, you know, I'll get a notification. It'll say, you received 50 stars. And it's worth whatever, you know, 50 cents or you know, 500 stars. So if you want to send me stars, please do. But it's not, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Facebook is just trying to do things that make these things more fun. Okay, so I'm taking the garlic, I'm cutting off the end. It's the hard end, and that makes it easy to peel. And I've got 3 garlic cloves. Depending on how garlicky you like your food, you know, you can have less. Now, this piece of garlic has a green thing in the middle of it. I want you to see it. When your garlic has the green, you know, like a sprout in it, take that out, because these little green sprouts in the middle of your garlic, they're bitter, and you don't want to eat that. So when you see that inside your garlic, when you peel it, I always pull it out, and you don't see them that often. I see one in this one. And this garlic hasn't even been around that long. It's not like it's old or anything. It's just, I guess it just depends on, you know, the batch of garlic you get. You could get one that's just been around too long. I don't know what causes it, if it's a temperature or what, but you know, that's probably another reason to store your garlic in a garlic jar or somewhere away from light, because it will start sprouting. So I'm just kind of coarsely chopping up the garlic. For this recipe, some people like it really garlicky. So if you wanted to put, you know, a couple more cloves of garlic in here, you could. You don't have to, but you could. Okay, so I've got I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I've got onions and garlic cooking in my skillet because I'm going to add that to my pot of beans once I add some other ingredients to this. So this recipe is basically a white bean soup with greens in it, but some other ingredients we're going to put in it. We're going to put some cashew cream in it. So that's going to be different. So I see Mary Kay is on. Good to know. I don't know what she means. Good to know about, maybe about the garlic with the green sprout in it, but whatever it is, I'm glad you found it helpful. Hi, Brian. So I'm sauteing these things, and I can tell they're kind of getting a little brown. So I'm going to add a little water, because that's another thing. I keep this, see how that sizzled up? I keep this hot water kettle in my other kitchen, my main kitchen where I cook, right next to the stove, and I use it all the time for things like this because we don't use oil. So it's handy to have the water right there. It's not always hot, but as I said earlier, when you're cooking your beans, you want to use hot boiling water when you add water to your beans. You don't want to add cold water. And my stovetop method for cooking beans is on YouTube. Now I've got just how to make your basic bean recipe. And that way, because people were always asking me, well, how do you make the beans on the stovetop, Rancho Gordo style? And then I would tell people, well, you know, here's how to do it. And it's on here on Facebook, on one of the Facebook Live videos, but a lot of the Facebook Live videos, it's hard to find them. Once you make them, it's like they disappear. They're on there, but you have to really search. They don't just come up as easily, which is why I started doing, you know, some duplicates of some of my popular videos on YouTube, because I thought, you know, on YouTube it's easier to find stuff. All you have to do is go to my channel, which is Julia Dunaway, and search the topic and it will pop right up. You don't have to go through what Facebook is making people go through, all this stuff to find things. It's very annoying. So that's why, you know, I'm trying to put some things on YouTube. But I'll keep doing the Facebook stuff because it's fun. All right, so I've got my onions and garlic. Now I'm going to add some greens to that. So you all have seen the beans and you see what they look like. They're just a white small bean. So I'm going to be adding some greens. Now I want to show you that these greens are the same greens that I use for my daily greens. You all know I have daily greens every morning. You know, I have like these blanched greens, and these are the same ones I use. And this is a 10-ounce container, and they're called organic super greens. They're baby spinach, chard, and kale. I also have a lot of greens in my garden that are still alive. I can't believe it. With this crazy weather, I could see it right out the door. I have all this kale and stuff, and I use that too, but I know most of you don't have access to kale right outside your door. So, you know, this is the kind I would get. This 10 ounces is a lot, so we're only going to use, because I'm only making half the recipe that I'll be giving you. I'll be giving you a recipe for a pound of beans, but I'm only making half that recipe because I don't want to have a lot of this soup just for me. It's for me. My husband will probably eat it, but we don't need to have a bunch of leftovers of this soup. So I just want enough for a couple servings, maybe like 4 servings. So I'm going to take my greens and I'm cutting them up because I don't want such giant pieces of greens. I'm going to just kind of roughly chop them so they're not as big. And like I said, it's spinach, kale, and chard, but this is baby spinach, kale, and chard, so it's not the giant spinach, kale, and chard that you would get if you got a big bunch. And the nice thing about these kind of greens is they're already washed and they're ready to use. If we were to get our own bunch of greens of chard and kale, then we would have to go through and, you know, wash them and wash them and wash them. So I'm just going to dump these in my skillet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this before I add it to the soup, because I want to infuse the flavors of the greens and the onions and the garlic and kind of saute them in my pan here and get them to cook together. And I'm not going to add any salt and pepper or anything. I've just got the greens, onions, and garlic. And I'm just going to let it kind of cook down until the greens are cooked. And these greens do not take very long to cook. We're only talking about a couple minutes. And I'm going to add a little water to kind of speed it up a little bit. Also, while these greens are cooking, I'm going to start warming my beans back up. All right? So I'm just gonna let those cook. And I've got my beans here in my pot. I showed them to you earlier. And remember, I took out about half of them because I didn't want to make all of this today in one recipe. Now my beans are still pretty warm because I made them not that long ago. I soaked these beans for about 4 hours. I get up really early, so about 5 o'clock this morning I started soaking the beans. And usually I would soak them, like Rancho Gordo says, soak them 5 or 6 hours. Someone said, I still have kale and chard in their yard. Wow. I can't see where it's at. Here in Ontario. Wow. But, so normally I soak the Rancho Gordo beans for 5 or 6 hours, but today at 4 hours, I could tell they were already really kind of bloated. And I thought, man, if I keep soaking these beans, maybe they're gonna start sprouting. So I went ahead and started cooking them after soaking them for 4 hours. I brought the beans to a boil, and then, you know, the Rancho Gordo method of stovetop beans, stirring that around a little bit, is to cook them, to hard boil them, like boil hard with, you know, like rolling boil for about 15 minutes. So I did that. Then I simmered them, and it took about 2 hours, a little less than 2 hours. And then I actually went back and simmered them a little bit longer because the way I like the beans is I like it where the skins are tender. Okay, so if you bite into the bean and you can still taste the outside skin of the bean, and you can, I don't even know how to describe it, it's kind of a mouthfeel, then to me the bean needs to cook a little longer. So I cooked them a few more minutes until they had the right, I would just call it mouthfeel. Okay, so you see in just that short of a time, you know, here my beans, my greens just wilted way down. I think you can see them right here. They wilted down to where they're, you know, almost, you know, they got a lot smaller. So it doesn't take that long, you know, to wilt these greens. And I'm going to turn the heat off. So again, I cooked the greens with the onion and garlic. I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to I'll bring my beans over to this burner because that way we can see it better. And I'll turn it on. So what I'm doing is I'm simmering my beans. Let me get a little closer here. All right, so I've got the beans, and you can tell they're starting to bubble. In fact, they're bubbling a little too much. We don't want to boil them to death, okay? So I've got them in here. And now what I'm going to do is, I see it's a little thick. If you look at it, it's like there's no broth in here, not very much. So I need to add a little bit of water, but not too much because I don't want to water this down. So just a couple tablespoons. And then I'm going to add in, remember this is about, I'd say 4 ounces of the greens, a half of a medium onion, and a couple garlic cloves, 3 small garlic cloves. And I'm just putting that all in my soup, in my beans, because I'm making the beans and greens. It's a bean and green soup. So now I've got the greens in here. And remember, I chopped the greens up so they're kind of small. I didn't want great big huge pieces of greens floating in here. So then we're going to add some lemon. So this way of adding lemon is to add it in strips, you know, kind of like big strips. So how I did that was I took my lemon, and I just took the peeler, and I just kind of ran it across the lemon. Easier said than done. Just like that. I just, you know, peeled, because you want bigger pieces. So I'm going to put 3 in here because then we can fish them out. Nobody has to eat a big piece of lemon, but it will infuse it with lemon. And then we're going to put some red chili flakes in here. This is just, you know, red chili flakes. A big pinch, so I'm not going to pinch it, I'm just going to sprinkle in about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And I'll post the recipe for this on the Facebook page here when we're done. All right, so what I have here is I have this beautiful soup. Let me get the angle here. It's always hard, but you can see it's got the greens and the beans. It doesn't have a lot of broth, right now. It's kind of thick. So this all depends on the thickness you like your soup. Some people like their soup really super thick and more like a pureed soup, you know, where it's like almost like a stew. And then some people like their soup thin where they can just sip it. So I'll leave that up to you. I'm kind of making this thick. Now the very last thing that we're going to add is cashew cream. So I made this cashew cream last night because I used it in another recipe. I used it in this. I was experimenting with different kinds of corn casserole. So I made a corn casserole that I made it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, so it kind of turned into a cornbread, so, not a casserole. But I used cashew cream in it, and it's delicious, but it's not what I was trying to make. And I have to change the recipe, but I used cashew cream in it. It's gonna go really well with this bean soup, so we'll be eating that again tonight. But that's why I made cashew cream. I thought I'll make it last night because I knew I needed it today. Cashew cream is just cashews and water, blitzed in the high-speed blender. So I have a Vitamix blender. I put cashews in there that have been soaking for an hour or so, and I made it really creamy. So when you use cashew cream, when you want cashew cream, it's supposed to look like very smooth cream, okay? See how it's not, it doesn't have any like dry pieces in there. It doesn't have any, I want to say the coarse ground up cashews. You can't see anything in it because people will tell me they made something with cashews and the cashews are all, you know, like gritty sandpaper. And they said, oh, it didn't taste good. You could see the cashews were all ground up. So hi, Tammy. Hi, Sharon. So, you know, don't underdo your cashews. So I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of cashew cream in here. In the original version of this soup that I saw in the Rancho Gordo bean newsletter, because what happens is Rancho Gordo sends out different newsletters and recipes and different things that people put together for Rancho Gordo. You know, the author of this original recipe that I modified quite a bit, they called for like 1/2 cup of olive oil, heavy cream, you know, that kind of stuff. So, hi Pam, hi Amy. So, you know, of course we're not going to eat something that has a bunch of cream and olive oil in it. So what I did was I added 1/4 cup of cashew cream, and what that did was it made it, let's see if you could see it, it made it turn this really pretty creamy color. So now what we have is we have this really pretty soup that has a nice color. I'll put it in this bowl so you can see it better. And it's, you know, we would cook it for, say, 15 minutes, but we're not going to do that because, you know, I'm going to show it to you now. It doesn't need it any more than what we have right now. And then, you know, serve this with a piece of this, you know, some of my cornbread. A lot of you have the cornbread recipe, and you'll have a delicious dinner. But what we have here, gotta get a spoon out, is we have this really nice creamy bean and green soup with small pieces of greens, garlic, carrots, celery, and onions. And it's infused with that lemon and garlic. And it's really delicious. You know, there's not much to it. We didn't have to do a lot to this, you know, to make a good dish. And I think that's the beauty of really good beans. If you have really good product, I'm gonna turn this off. If you have something really good, like delicious creamy white beans, and then we added, you know, simple ingredients like fresh onion, and then, you know, really good greens, it doesn't have to be that complicated. The hardest thing for this is to make your beans ahead of time. The Rancho Gordo beans, they always tell you to make them on the stove top and not make them in the Instant Pot because their beans are fresh. They don't require a lot of soaking time. They haven't been sitting on the grocery store shelf for 5 years. And so they'll tell you, soak them, you know, 5 hours max, and then cook them for anywhere from, you know, an hour to 3 hours, depending on what kind of bean they are. These took about 2 hours, and they were perfect. So that's why I cook the beans. You know, this is what they look like, the beans by themselves, on the stove top. You can cook them in the Instant Pot, but I don't recommend it because they never turn out as good. It does something to them. So what other kind of beans? Like for Bean of the Week, you guys can vote. I have piquito beans. I have Ayocote Amarillo, and this is kind of an heirloom bean from Mexico that is, they describe it as, they don't really describe this one, but it's kind of a big reddish bean. And then I have these, they're called flageolet beans, a creamy, dense heirloom bean that stays whole yet soft when cooked, and it's kind of pale green. So you guys in the comments, tell me for next week which kind of bean you would like to see me make, and I will make something else next week. But for today, our bean of the week was the white bean, the Alubia Blanca, that we turned into a creamy bean and green soup by using a little cashew cream, just a little, 1/4 of a cup for this whole pot. And that really did transform this soup into, you know, it's like a cream soup. You know, the cashew cream is not like heavy cream, but it does lend itself to be like a really nice creamy soup. So I think you would really like this. I'm serving this for dinner tonight for my husband, and I think he'll like it. Oh, I see some different people voting for their beans. So I'll put the recipe for the bean and green soup on here on this website or this Facebook page. As soon as I'm done, I'll go in there and finish the recipe. I posted most of it yesterday. That way you can make it. And if you like it spicier, I would add some more red chili flakes because I don't really taste the spice in this. So I would add that. And then like whatever I don't use, what I do with stuff like this is I freeze it in little 2-cup containers, either glass or plastic. And I label them all with the name of, you know, lentil soup, white bean soup, whatever. And I stack those up in my freezer. And so on a day like this is a cold, wintry day. And if I'm busy, I can just go in there and grab one of those, you know, little soups from the freezer, and I'm all set. Amy Jo Moore says, thank you for showing us. You're welcome. And if you don't want to use cashew cream, if you're like, no, I don't want to add the extra fat from cashews, you can just omit it. It's not going to be much different because the white beans themselves are creamy. Remember that in some recipes, white beans are used as a thickener. So white beans can accomplish the same thing as cashews. So, you know, leave them out if you don't really want to have the calories from the cashews. But I have not used cashew cream in a bean soup yet, so I wanted to be sure I did that. So remember, it's just, you know, the simple ingredients. It was just white beans cooked, some greens that I bought at the store, a little garlic, onion, fresh lemon, and we made this absolutely stunning, lemon fell on the floor. I better pick it up before my husband comes in to mop the floor. Let's see. Beverly says the beans that are green. Oh, she wants me to make the flageolet beans. I've never made these before. And I've never made these beans before. So that's why I wanted to do, one of my goals in doing the bean of the week was so that I could make beans that I hadn't made before, because they're starting to pile up. Like I've got like stacks of these Rancho Gordo beans in my pantry. And you know, I'm thinking, I need to cook more beans more often, different ones, and extend my bean repertoire and not just make black beans and pinto beans. So I'm going to be making more beans. Michelle says, love the flageolet. Okay, well, good. I hope I like it too. I'll make something with that, and we'll see how that turns out. But that'll be next week. So I hope you guys make the white beans and white bean and green soup. It smells really good. It's gonna be hard for me not to eat this before dinner, but I have to go work out. I see a lot of birds flying by. I have to go work out at 4 o'clock, and I know from experience that if I eat a bunch of food before I go work out, it makes the workout harder, you know, on a full stomach. So I'll just have to wait. So you guys make this delicious bean and green soup, and hope to see you back on Wednesday. I'll be doing a YouTube video, but this week this is a kind of a repeat because so many people wanted to make the green chili enchilada casserole, and it's kind of hidden in the bean of the week things on Facebook. So I told some people I would make a YouTube video of the green chili bean casserole so that it would be a lot easier to find. So I'm going to make that Wednesday. And then for those of you who watch Chef AJ, she has daily broadcasts of people that are doing cooking demos. I'm going to be doing a cooking demo on Chef AJ on Sunday at 1 o'clock Central Time. So you guys, if you want to watch me on Chef AJ, that's going to be a first for me. So we'll see how that goes, but wish me luck. I'm kind of nervous about that, but it's on Zoom, so I'll have my computer set up over here, and I'm used to making stuff now in front of the camera, so I think I'll be okay. But still, it's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, that's a very popular daily show. So watch me and make comments so I can go back later and read it and know people that I know were watching. That'll make me feel really confident. Okay, so this was it for today. Thanks for the YouTube of black bean green chili. Okay, so somebody is happy that I'm going to be doing the YouTube of the black bean green chili enchiladas. So good, because I think it's going to be handy. So here we go. This is the bean soup we made today, and I'm going to sign off, and I hope you make it. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.